Video games are entering a future where I can only call it what it really is, which is that, for lack of a better term, they are opening the gates of oblivion when it comes to what companies can and cannot do against our favorite pastime. From Ubisoft to games about girls playing with horses, just let me explain. I promise you this will all make sense once I'm done here. But let's start with Ubisoft, who has decided to double down in the face of this oblivion and claim that despite everything imploding for them at the seams, that they are now claiming definitively that you in fact do not own your games and never will. Yeah, you heard that right. Those digital copies of Assassin's Creed or Rainbow Six or anything else, they're just a fancy rental according to them. And if that wasn't bad enough, they're now tangled in a lawsuit over the crew shutting down, and this entire thing is, as you'll see, is just one gigantic mess. So let's start with this big one first. Ubisoft's out here cosplaying as the Grinch of gaming. This comes from GosuGaming.com. Ubisoft's response to the crew shutdown lawsuit says players only had limited license. So, in case you didn't know, Ubisoft discontinued and took the 2014 game The Crew offline completely, meaning fans who played the game or bought any microtransactions and whatnot were suddenly unavailable to use any of the things they paid money for. This then led to a lawsuit being filed against Ubisoft, claiming that they can't remove content that customers have spent years playing and buying into like this. The fact that The Crew doesn't have an offline mode that just allows players to enjoy the game and the various season pass style content they've bought, it's actually insane if you ask me. I think it's genuinely crazy that companies believe they can just revoke content from someone's account on a whim or deem it unplayable whenever they see fit. Of course, Ubisoft doesn't think this way, and they make the case claiming the game's storefront made it abundantly clear that any content or online services could be revoked within 30 days before players even bought the game. Ubisoft's lawyers would clap back with this in terms of the lawsuit, frustrated with Ubisoft's recent decision to retire the game following a notice period delineated on the product's packaging. Plaintiffs apply a kitchen sink approach on behalf of a putative class of nationwide customers, alleging 8 causes of action including violations of California's false advertising law, unfair competition law, and Consumer Legal Remedies Act, as well as common law fraud and breach of warranty claims. Ubisoft, like I said, has made it clear in their eyes that you never own The Crew, or really any of their games for that matter. As you can see here from a Polygon article about this same topic, Ubisoft cites how they stated The Crew needed online connection to be played in the first place, and they could, technically, remove it whenever they wanted to. Ubisoft would respond again to this lawsuit with this: after making their purchases, plaintiffs enjoyed access to The Crew for years before Ubisoft decided in late 2023 to retire and shut down the servers of the 10-year-old video game, the filing states. Plaintiffs received the benefit of the bargain and cannot complain now that they were deceived simply because Ubisoft did not then create an offline version of the discontinued video game. Oh wow, okay, so Ubisoft is going with the angle that you should be thanking them for allowing you access in the first place to play their games at all, and that it's not really their problem that you didn't read the terms and conditions when it came to them being able to turn off a 10-year-old game like this. And you should be thankful that Ubisoft allowed you to play The Crew for a discounted price. That's crazy, like actually. As you can see here on screen, Ubisoft also argued that they do not need to reimburse anyone who bought microtransactions with The Crew either, and that you got what you paid for by paying real money, enjoying the content, and now, years removed, it is morally just that they can remove this license to said content from your account now. I think the angle that Ubisoft is going with here is they are viewing their games, these online services, and especially DLC and microtransaction more so in the vein of you going to the movies or to like a carnival even. You paid to get into the carnival and then you paid extra to enjoy the games, or maybe you bought some food. And in their eyes, it's not the carnival's fault if they closed down at some point and now you were unable to enjoy what the carnival has on offer, even though you, yes, bought a ticket to enter the premise and play the games and whatnot. But this, in my opinion, it's not a sound argument because they're completely different things. A video game never needs to be finite or expired. You can easily still play Super Nintendo games on your SNES if you both own a SNES and the game. Nintendo can't technically go into your house and take it away from you due to licensing disagreements or something. I guess they could send a bounty hunter to smash your SNES, which wouldn't be very nice, but the point remains that at least back then in the SNES, PS1, N64 era, what you bought, you actually owned. But today, we're entering what can only be described as a fully digital age, so now most content from games, movies, and more can be experienced virtually without having to, go out and buy the thing physically. It's sort of like how companies such as Disney or Netflix can release a TV show and then pull that show from their service, and now nobody can technically enjoy the show anymore. Is it within their right to remove that show? I mean, yes, they own the show and the rights to that media. But does it make it any less scummy that these companies can, on a whim, just remove content that you paid for? I mean, yeah, absolutely, come on. This is why I'm hesitant a lot of the time when it comes to DLC in games or microtransactions. I'm not saying I've never bought anything like that, I have, we all have to some degree. But the idea that a company could lose the license to, say, a car dealership in a video game, and they don't want to pay the license to renew that license, so they just end up pulling the game featuring those cars, or maybe it's a song that needs to be renewed in like a remaster. A good example actually is Tony Hawk. And instead of renewing it like it was in the original, they just remove it. These things do happen. Like I said, in the remaster for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, that remaster was confirmed to have new songs, and older songs that were already in the game were now being removed. According to Tony Hawk himself, that was his choice to do so, and he wanted players to experience the game with both old tracks that they remember, but discover newer music too. But I have a cynical gut feeling that the music that was removed, which was specifically stated to be from bands like Iron Maiden, Alien Ant Farm, and AFI, I have to wager it's because these bands, especially Iron Maiden, due to how big they are, God, I love Iron Maiden, one of my favorite bands ever. But anyway, they probably had things in their contracts saying if you want to add our music again and sell this remaster, you gotta pay us this much money. And Activision went, no thanks, we're good, and so it was removed. It still sucks either way, but that's business, I guess. But for Ubisoft to claim you just leased a limited license to play The Crew until they pull the plug on the game entirely, it's just gross in my opinion. The servers went dark for the original Crew game in March 2024, turning your purchase and all your DLC effectively into a paperweight pretty much. Now, I don't know about you, but when I buy a game, I expect to, own it. Not have Ubisoft yeeting it into the void because server infrastructure or whatever other excuse. Imagine buying a car, and then Ford's like, nah, we're gonna take the engine back. You just licensed the ability for your car to function as a car. You would be pissed. But the fact that Ubisoft's lawyers are doubling down on this, saying that players should have known better, what, we're supposed to read the 50-page EULA? While we're hyped to play a game that we just bought for real money, players just want to drift and drive really fast, not study for a law degree. This lawsuit has been going on since November 2024. Some Californian gamers pretty much said enough is enough. And then they just slapped Ubisoft with a class action lawsuit. They're mad, and I don't think we can blame them because The Crew wasn't just delisted, man, it was obliterated. Now the physical copies, the digital downloads, it doesn't matter. Once those servers died, the game just became a glorified demo. There isn't even an offline mode, nothing. You literally just now own a disc that can't be played or a digital version that's locked. That's insane to me. I don't know about you, but when I buy a game, I like to think that I can come back to it when I want to, because it's a video game after all. It's not a ticking time bomb. And these guys, they're accusing Ubisoft of false advertising, unfair competition, and get this, breaking California's gift card laws. Because apparently, game codes shouldn't just expire like milk, and yeah, I agree. But Ubisoft just says, you never had ownership rights in the first place. Who talks like this to customers? This is 101 to ensure that nobody wants to support you ever again. They're acting like we're peasants that are begging for scraps while they sip wine in their French chateau, but here's where it gets dumber. Ubisoft actually made offline versions for The Crew 2 and Motorfest, but not the OG Crew game. Why? Did they forget how to code, or they just not care? My money's on the laziness. I'm not lying either. Here's an article from IGN in 2024 about this very thing. They actually added offline versions for both Motorfest and The Crew 2, but the original game is just not available. So the reason they did this was actually never fully explained from what I could find online. Maybe Ubisoft believed, well, why would people want to still play the original Crew if the technically better version of the same game already exists in its sequel? But here's the thing, Ubisoft, you can't decide that for players because you're not the person paying for the product in this situation here. Imagine if Ubisoft was a restaurant. They gave you a steak. Oh, you like that steak, don't you? Too bad, we're taking it away from you midway into your meal. Here's a fried eggplant instead. But you really like that steak and you don't want that eggplant. Yeah, but Ubisoft likes that eggplant more, so you're gonna eat that instead, okay? Stop being a bigot. That's pretty much what's happening here. This lawsuit's got Ubisoft sweating. They've got until April 29th, 2025 to respond again. And the plaintiffs are pushing for class action status. If they win, it could force publishers to rethink how they handle digital games. So yeah, this ain't just about the Crew, it's about whether we actually own anything in gaming anymore going forward. So if you ask me, this is kind of a big deal, because if this lawsuit falls through and Ubisoft wins, it opens the gates to oblivion for a lot of these publishers and whatnot to just yank your access to any game they want in the future. And if you ask me, that isn't just disgusting, but disingenuous and morally wrong too, because usually when a free-to-play game goes offline, people who played get reimbursed for their purchases. Well, mostly, not always, that's another issue entirely. But video games are not tickets to a movie. They are experiences that people buy for higher prices usually so they can enjoy them whenever they want to. And I'm worried that when you take what Ubisoft has done here with their games, then you start wondering how Nintendo is trying to raise prices on everything else too. It kind of just makes me think, where does this all end? Like, did you know that Switch 2 will have a retail version for Tears of the Kingdom? And that version for Switch 2 won't even have its DLC included, yet it will cost full price anyways? What is happening to video games, man? This is so bad and dumb. Look, this isn't just Ubisoft being Ubisoft. This is a warning shot for the whole industry. Digital gaming's been heading this way for years. Live service games, always online DRM, subscriptions even. Companies like Ubisoft want you to think that you're renting your hobby and not owning it. Remember when we had physical discs and manuals? Ah man, those were the days. Now, they can just flip a switch and your library's gone pretty much. And it's not just old games. Assassin's Creed Shadows, their big 2025 so-called hit with their 3 million players, that could theoretically get the same treatment someday too. With this precedent becoming normalized, what you're seeing is the very fabric of video games just being torn apart by greedy, out-of-touch people who don't even consume the content that they sell. And this is why gamers are understandably pissed off. We're not just fighting for the Crew here. We're fighting for the future of ownership of the experiences that we love, but here's what really grinds my gears. Ubisoft's acting like this is normal. Their director of subscriptions, yeah, that's a real job title at Ubisoft, said in 2024 that gamers need to get comfortable not owning anything. Here's what Philippe Tremblay, that's the director of subscriptions at Ubisoft, and what he said about you not owning anything you buy anymore. One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games. That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They got comfortable not owning their CD collection or DVD collection. That's a transformation that's been a bit slower to happen in games. As gamers grow comfortable in that aspect, you don't lose your progress. If you resume your game at another time, your progress file is still there. That's not been deleted. You don't lose what you've built in the game or your engagement with the game, so it's about feeling comfortable with not owning your game. Like I said in my previous video about No Mercy and giving an inch to activists, this is of a similar vein too. What Ubisoft has done here is lay the foundation down stating that you do not own anything that they make at all, either in the past, in the present, or even the future. But the problem with this subscription director guy's claims is that your save file means nothing if the game that you're trying to play, which in this case would be 2014's The Crew in this lawsuit, doesn't even exist at all anymore. A save file means nothing if you can't use that save to play the game that you bought content in. The actions of Ubisoft and what they've done here versus what this director guy says and the fact that they made offline modes for The Crew 2 and so on, it goes against their proposed position in this lawsuit if you ask me. So you don't own your games, but you own your save file. But if we take away the game your save file is meant to be used for doesn't exist anymore, It's suddenly no longer our problem, and instead you're all stupid because you didn't read the massive agreement we put on screen before playing your game in the first place. If it just feels gross, if you ask me. Maybe I'm old school, which I am because my knees crack when I walk, but I think if you buy a game, you should be able to play that game whenever you want for the rest of time, especially from a single player perspective. It's disgusting, because games like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, even the Deadpool game, they all got delisted on pretty much all storefronts. Apparently, according to what I could find, Xbox is trying to restore the licenses, but if these companies don't want to pay Disney Marvel the fees they want, these games just evaporate into the ether, I guess, and it annoys me because I bought those Ultimate Alliance remasters. I played them. I love those games. But if I go on PSN right now, I can't re-download those games to keep playing them because I deleted them at some point for storage reasons. So now they just don't exist for me despite the fact that I paid for them. That's kind of messed up, isn't it? All of it is just gross, and I think players should never become comfortable, or whatever these weirdos want to say, when it comes to game ownership at all. It should be simple. You make the game, you sell the game, people buy the game, and then it just remains like that forever. In terms of games that have licenses like Marvel Ultimate Alliance or maybe even The Crew, those licenses should just be paid one time and then those games can just exist forever. It's ridiculous that these companies need to renew licenses on games that are like 10 years old or more. I know life isn't fair, but I can't help but feel like all of this legal gobbledygook nonsense just ruins everything if you ask me. This then brings me to that horse girl game. It's called Star Stable, a microtransaction heavy horse simulator that is targeted at children. And as the European Union puts it, this game is being made an example of to destroy the chokehold that game companies have when it comes to predatory practices. From EuropeanInterest.com, Commission and national authorities protect children from harmful practices in video games. As you can see here from the official document, the EU is working with authorities to use this Star Stable game as a catalyst to break down what these companies can do with the content that you pay for. The entire mission statement reads below. Following a complaint by the Swedish Consumers Association, the CPC network, coordinated by the Commission, has launched a coordinated action requesting Star Stable Entertainment AB to provide information on commercial practices that children might encounter in their game Star Stable Online. The CPC network's assessment of the reply provided by the company identified a number of practices that violate European Union consumer protection legislation, and that could be particularly harmful to children, such as, and here's what they claim is the problem from, direct appeals to children in the advertisements urging them to buy or persuade adults to buy for them, in-game currency or items, the use of pressuring techniques such as purchase through time-limited practices to unduly influence children to purchase in-game virtual currency or in-game content, a lack of clear and transparent information adapted to children about buying and using in-game virtual currency, leading consumers to spend more than they intend to, failure by the company to ensure that the influencers promoting their products clearly disclose commercial content and do not unduly influence children with their marketing techniques. This also led to Michael McGrath, who's the Commissioner of Democracy, Justice, and Rule of Law and Consumer Protection, that's a hell of a job title by the way, who said this about Star Stable, this horse game, and really to all game companies who are all trying to pull the wool over players' eyes with deceptive tactics like Ubisoft 2. He said, children spend a lot of time online, gaming and interacting on social media. This makes them an attractive target for traders and advertisers. It is crucial to ensure a safe online environment for consumers, particularly children, so they can enjoy gaming without facing unfair practices. I support the efforts of the CPC network and look forward to working with the gaming industry to protect consumers and children. So the reason why I'm bringing this horse game up is because this means that the pushback towards companies like this Star Stable or Ubisoft is only going to intensify. And I need more people to know about these things so that word can get out, so that there's more awareness and pushback, so we can ensure that video games and more don't become completely bastardized by the demands of these insane executives who want you to own nothing, shut up, and kiss their feet in compliance. It's not okay to harm or target children with predatory practices of any kind, and regulations need to be put in place to ensure the most vulnerable are not getting taken advantage of. But the bigger mission, for me anyway, is that hopefully with enough awareness, these issues can become larger and more prevalent so things can finally change. This could, in a sense, spell doom for AAA gaming, because what these companies want is for you to shut up and just quite literally consume their slop without knowing better. How can we reasonably be okay knowing that we are heading towards a future where everything is just more expensive? You own none of the content that you buy with your own money. That all of it can, at any point, be taken away from you without notice, and then if you try to push back to get the things that you paid for, you have to resort to stuff like actual lawsuits. It's just not normal, it's not okay. AAA gaming is in real trouble, guys, and it's crazy that two of the catalysts that are going to lead to some hopefully big changes are a game about cars that Ubisoft made, and some random mobile game where you can pet horses and buy them cute cosmetics. Not exactly the two examples I thought I would land on in this video, to be real with you guys, but hey, I guess the industry can still be surprising either way, which is cool to me. And another big reason why this is such a big deal is that the European Union wants to remove the predatory microtransactions overspending that many of these games commit. For an example, here's Star Stable again. As you can see, I'm scrolling through their website, looking at all of the horses available in game. Wow, that's a lot of horses. Very cool. But when you click on a horse, you can then see that they cost a certain amount of star coins. So then you go to their shop section of their website here. And you can now see all the various packs that you can buy that give you access to star coins. But then you'll quickly notice that each amount is not really what you need for a single horse. This is a big problem that the EU and the Consumer Protection Act wants to fix. You see, a lot of these companies are making you, let's just say it how it is, overspend so you always have a little bit extra star coins, in this case I guess, for when you buy your favorite horse. This then leads your brain to think, well, I got an extra 200 coins. How much do I need for another, horse, I guess? And then you can see how this can easily snowball into very bad behavior and addictions. And Star Stable, like the crew, can technically just pull the rug from underneath players whenever they want to in the future. They could announce tomorrow that, thanks everyone for playing, I guess, we're disconnecting the game and all your content is void because the game is always online. What, you didn't read the terms and negotiations? And for all the players who spent plenty of money on these virtual horses, cosmetics, and more, they are now just screwed like those Ubisoft crew players. They are SOL pretty much. And you tell me if this is a future that we should be endorsing going forward when it comes to video games. And I guess the question I want to ask is, do you think it's okay for companies to offer their video games or their cosmetic purchases and whatnot in a carnival or movie ticket-like fashion? Is it justified that you do not own these games but simply a license to play them? And if you do think that way, why do you think that way? Let me know in the comments if you don't mind, because if you ask me, these consumer practices will only damage not only the relations between consumer and the publisher, but ruin the very fabric of video games as we know it going forward. None of this is okay, more people need to know about it, and I hope this video informed you to just how sleazy some of these business practices really are. So don't just vote with your wallets, people, think with your brains too. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you like, I won't ever stop fighting for video games no matter what, and I'll see you guys in the next one.